army so powerful no Arab tribe dared to stand against it.
One man, blinded by pride, marched to destroy the sacred house. They had no army, no weapons, only trust in Allah.
Then the sky answered.
And he made them like eaten straw.
This was the year of the elephant. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل
وأرسل عليهم طير عبابيل
ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول.
Before we begin, if you value authentic history and meaningful knowledge, support this journey by liking, subscribing, and sharing. Long before the elephants marched toward Makkah, long before the birds in flocks wrote their miracle in the skies, there was a man whose ambition would shake the Arabian Peninsula. His name was Abraha al-Ashram, born around 570 CE in Yemen, under the waning influence of the Himyarite kingdom. A man of extraordinary vision and extraordinary arrogance. Abraha was not born into power. He was a slave, a child among the oppressed, sold, traded, and abandoned by fate. He grew in a land of rich kingdoms and desert struggles. But the desert teaches a truth. Survival sharpens ambition. Ambition turns the powerless into rulers. The Himyarite kingdom, once a jewel of Arabia, was crumbling. Kings fought for control. Alliances shifted like sand. Rival faction, the Nuars, vied for dominance in Yemen. Abraha navigated this chaos. As a young military leader, he demonstrated cunning, discipline, and strategy. By 555 CE, he had become the governor of Sana'a under the aegis of the Christian Aksumite influence in Yemen. History remembers him not merely as a ruler, but as a man who wielded religion as a tool for power. Abraha converted to Christianity under the influence of Aksum, modern-day Ethiopia. His faith was strategic, not purely spiritual. The Christian Abyssinian kings provided him with armies, elephants, and resources. Abraha's mission: build a cathedral in Sana'a that would rival the Kaʿbah, the most sacred site of Arabia. This was no ordinary ambition. This was religion, politics, and pride intertwined. Abraha commissioned the Cathedral of Mariat, the Al-Qulay's cathedral in Sana'a, intended as a spiritual and political rival to Makkah. Its walls gleamed in the sun. Its doors opened to kings and merchants, but the hearts of Arabs remained tied to the Kaʿbah, a shrine predating even Islam. Frustrated, Abraha grew bitter. He could build wonders, raise armies, and train elephants, yet he could not break the devotion of the Quraysh and the tribes of Makkah. By 570 CE, the year of the Prophet Muhammad's birth, Abraha's patience ended. His eyes turned toward Makkah. His army was trained, including war elephants from Abyssinia. His plan: march toward the Kaaba and destroy the shrine that defied him. He believed history belonged to those with armies, elephants, and ambition. He did not yet know that history also belongs to divine will. Abraha's army was ready. Thousands of soldiers, elephants towering like mountains, weapons sharpened for destruction. But the desert whispered a warning. Ambition alone cannot touch what God has protected. The stage was set for a story that would echo through centuries, a story recorded in the Quran itself, Surah al-Fīl. From slave to conqueror, from ambition to arrogance, Abraha's rise had led him to the gates of Makkah. But even the mightiest armies can fall when divine protection intervenes. The march toward the Kaaba was about to begin. In a world ruled by empires, where power marched on iron feet and faith stood unarmed, one army believed nothing could stop them. Not tribes, not walls, not history. They brought elephants to crush a house built by one man for one God. But what they did not see was what Allah had already sent. Not swords, not angels with wings of fire, but stones from the sky. The Quran records it in only 5 verses, but behind those verses lies a moment that changed Arabia forever. This is not just the story of an elephant. This is the story of how Allah protects what He chooses, without asking anyone's permission. Before Islam, before revelation, before the Quran was recited in the valleys of Makkah, the world was ruled by empires. Rome in the north, Persia in the east, Abyssinia across the sea. Power was measured in armies, gold, territory, and Arabia. Arabia had none of that. No empire, no central army, no walls. Yet the world watched one city with quiet concern. No rivers, no crops, no palaces. By every political calculation, Makkah should have been irrelevant. And yet caravans crossed deserts to reach it. Tribes laid down weapons within its boundaries. Kings respected its sanctity without conquering it. Why? At the heart of Makkah stood a simple stone structure. No guards, no banners, no throne. Only the Kaʿbah. The Kaʿbah was not defended by soldiers. It was defended by belief. Built by Ibrahim, a man without an army, yet his legacy outlived empires. For centuries, Arabs believe this house has a lord. They fought everywhere else. But inside its sanctuary, weapons were lowered, not because of Quraysh's strength, but because no one dared test the unseen. The Kaaba was more than spiritual, it was economic gravity. Pilgrimage meant trade, neutral ground. Seasonal markets, Makkah became powerful without ruling anyone, and that terrified nearby powers. Because influence without force is the most dangerous kind of power. South of Arabia, Yemen flourished. Green lands, strategic ports, access to Africa. It fell under the control of Abyssinia, Ethiopia, a Christian empire supported by Rome. And at its center rose a man with ambition. His name was Abraha. Abraha was not just a general, he was a governor, a builder, a strategist. He understood something crucial. Religion controls trade, trade controls power. As long as Arabs traveled to Makkah, Yemen would remain secondary. So Abraha made a decision, not military, not immediate, but symbolic. Abraha built a massive cathedral in Sana'a, beautiful, towering, unprecedented in Arabia. He decorated it with gold and marble. Then he announced, this is where Arabia should worship. But belief cannot be relocated by architecture. The Arabs did not come. The Kaaba remained the heart. And something happened that shattered Abraha's pride. According to historical reports, one Arab openly defiled the cathedral, not out of ignorance, but defiance. A message. Abraha was enraged, not because of the building, but because of what it represented: disrespect, rejection, humiliation. And in that moment, Abraha made a fatal assumption. If they respect the Kaaba, then destroy it, and they will come to me. This was not a war against people. This was a war against a symbol chosen by Allah. Abraha did not gather tribes. He gathered power. He brought soldiers hardened by imperial warfare, and then he added something Arabia had never seen before: elephants, massive, terrifying, psychologically overwhelming. Not just weapons, a message: no one can stop us. As news spread, fear moved faster than armies. Tribes fled, paths emptied. No coalition formed, no resistance gathered. Why? Because Makkah had no illusion about its strength. They did not say, we will win. They said, this house has a Lord. Sometimes faith does not scream. Sometimes it stands still. At this point, history expects a battle. Walls, blood, heroes. But the Quran does something shocking. It skips human defense entirely. Allah does not mention Quraysh's strategy, weapons for resistance. Instead, he begins Surah Al-Fīl with a question. Have you not seen how your Lord dealt with the companions of the elephant? As if to say, you already know the ending. The lesson is, how? Music softens, tension remains. Makkah sleeps. The Kaaba stands unguarded. An army approaches with elephants. No arrows are prepared. No swords drawn. Only silence. And above the sky, something unseen is already moving. Not hurried. Not nervous. Confident. This was not an army expecting resistance. This was an army expecting submission. Abraha did not march toward Makkah with doubt. He marched with certainty. Certainty that power always wins. Certainty that belief bends under force. Certainty that history belongs to those who arrive with armies. He had crushed cities before. And Makkah had no walls. The elephants were not chosen randomly. Arabia had never seen them. Their size alone was a declaration. This is not a tribal conflict. This is an empire speaking. Children fled at the sight. Tribes abandoned homes. Before a single arrow was fired, fear had already done the work. Abraha believed Makkah was protected by men, so he calculated, men can be defeated. What he did not understand was that the Kaaba was never protected by men. It was protected by permission. Abraha's army reached the outskirts. No resistance, no warning shots, no desperate envoys, only silence. And silence unsettles conquerors, because silence means the opponent is not afraid of you. Abraha's men seized livestock, including 200 camels belonging to the leader of Quraysh. The camels mattered, not because of wealth, but because of what would follow. From Makkah came a man, not armored, not escorted by soldiers, tall, dignified, calm. His name was Abdul-Muṭṭalib, the grandfather of a child who had not yet been born but would change the world. When Abdul-Muṭṭalib entered Abraha's tent, something unexpected happened. Abraha stood up. Kings do not stand for ordinary men, but dignity commands respect, even from arrogance. Abraha spoke first. He expected pleading, negotiation, fear. Instead, Abdul-Muṭṭalib said only one thing, return my camels. Abraha was stunned. You speak to me about camels, he said, while I have come to destroy your sacred house? Abdul-Muṭṭalib replied, calmly, firmly, eternally, I am the owner of the camels, and the house has a Lord who will protect it. That sentence ended the debate. Abdul-Muṭṭalib did not threaten. He did not bargain. He did not defend. He withdrew responsibility. This was not weakness. This was the highest form of tawakkul. He separated human responsibility from divine responsibility, and Allah loves when His servants know the difference. Abraha laughed. To him, this was superstition. My elephants will protect me, he thought. What is belief against force? What is prayer against power? History has always favored armies, or so he believed. That night, Makkah emptied. Families climbed the mountains. No one guarded the Kaaba. No torches burned. No cries rose. Only a house standing alone in the desert. If this were a human story, this would be the moment of defeat. But this was a Quranic story, and Allah had not yet entered the scene. At dawn, Abraha gave the command. The lead elephant was directed toward the Kaaba. It refused. They beat it. It knelt. They turned it away from Makkah. It walked. Toward Makkah again, it froze. Animals do not understand theology, but they respond to command. And this animal was responding to a higher command. For the first time, doubt entered Abraha's mind. Weapons were ready. Victory was assumed. Yet the path was blocked, not by men, but by something invisible. This was the moment arrogance begins to crack. The Quran does not describe panic. It does not describe battle cries. It simply says, did He not make their plan go astray? Allah does not fight plans. He dissolves them. The elephants stand still. The army waits. Makkah is empty. And the sky is silent. But silence does not mean absence. It means permission has not yet been given. The city slept. The Kaaba stood unguarded. No soldiers patrolled its walls. Outside, an army of elephants waited. Massive, terrifying, armed, certain. And yet, no battle had begun. This was not hesitation. This was anticipation. Because sometimes the greatest battles are silent. Inside Makkah, families had fled to the hills. The Quraysh, powerless, watched the approaching army. Fear could have caused panic. But Abdul-Muṭṭalib had spoken. The house has a Lord who will protect it. This was not mere hope. This was absolute reliance. Tawakkul. Even the oldest men, whose lives were measured in trade and bloodlines, said nothing, because the unseen had not yet arrived, but they trusted it would. Abraha's army expected resistance, a fight, a surrender, a negotiated tribute. Instead, they encountered nothing. Silence is heavier than swords. Historians describe this moment as paralysis of expectation. Men who expected victory suddenly faced the impossibility of certainty. Even the elephant screeches of war sensed the tension. Their confidence faltered. Above the army, the sky stretched empty. No thunder, no wind. Only vast silence. The Quran calls attention to this moment. Did he not send against their plan birds in flocks? Surah al-Fīl, 5003. Before birds appear, the stage must be set. Before miracles manifest, the world pauses. This is the calm before divine intervention. Abraha walks among his elephants. He checks the tusks, he measures the ground, he counts the men. Everything seems perfect. And yet, a small human doubt creeps in. Why are the people not fleeing? Why is the Kaaba still standing? Pride has limits, arrogance meets reality, and even conquerors feel the weight of the unseen. The Quraysh did nothing. Why? Because they had nothing to offer. And ʿAbdul-Muṭṭalib did nothing. Why? Because nothing human could affect the outcome. This moment teaches a lesson every Muslim must understand. Sometimes faith is not action. Sometimes faith is waiting. The silence is part of the strategy. The pause is part of the miracle. Inside the army, whispers spread. Why are the streets empty? Why does the city stand still? Why does the people planning an ambush? Soldiers glance at each other. The elephants shuffle. Confidence wavers. Even discipline cannot overcome the fear of the unknown. Because the greatest intervention is often unseen until the perfect moment. The Quraysh and Ӓbdul-Muṭṭalib represent submission. Abraha and his army represent human arrogance. The contrast is stark. One side trusts the unseen power. The other trusts visible might. The story teaches that reliance on Allah is more potent than any army. Classical historians Ibn Kathir al-Tabari emphasize Abraha's army was fully equipped. Elephants were war-trained. His men were veterans. Yet Quraysh, with no army, experienced no casualties, because victory does not always depend on numbers, it depends on divine decree. The Quran records the next moment briefly, and he sent against them birds in flocks, striking them with stones of baked clay, and he made them like eaten straw. But before birds arrive, the story's tension must be felt, the silence, the anticipation, the waiting that shakes the arrogance of an empire. The world holds its breath. Elephants poised, soldiers tense, Kaaba untouched, wind still. The silence is deafening. Every human thought, every calculation, every assumption is suspended. Because divine intervention always waits for the perfect moment. Silence can be more powerful than 1,000 swords. Reliance on Allah is not passive, it is active trust. The unseen is always present, even when humans feel abandoned. The Quran frames this pause as a lesson for all time. Abraha's army had arrived. The elephants marched. The Kaaba stood unguarded. And then the sky changed. No clouds, no storms, just the first signs of something unseen. The air carried an intensity, the kind that makes even the strongest hearts pause. Suddenly, a distant shadow moves across the horizon. Thousands of small birds, precise, coordinated, silent. Soldiers gasp. Elephants rear. Abraha stares, uncomprehending. The Quran calls them Tehran Ababil, birds in flocks. Not ordinary birds, not wild chaos, divinely organized. Each bird carries a stone of baked clay, a weapon unimaginable to human minds. They swoop. They aim, they strike. One stone hits an elephant's head, another strikes a soldier's shield. Chaos erupts. Abraha shouts, men fall, the elephants panic. Power cannot withstand the unseen. Imagine the psychology of men trained for war, steel in hands. And now, every calculation fails, every assumption collapses. Fear spreads faster than stones. The army is trapped by what cannot be fought. Ibn Kathir explains, the birds did not strike aimlessly, they struck according to Allah's plan, and the army was destroyed completely. This was divine precision. One by one, the elephants stop, chew tusks buried in sand, legs collapse, chew panic spreads. Animals of war, mighty beasts, cannot resist the unseen hand. Abraha tries to command them, they do not move. Even nature obeys the Creator. Soldiers run, chaos spreads. Yet Makkah remains untouched. No fire, no blood on the Kaaba, no breach of the sanctuary. The Quran says, he made them like eaten straw. Not a single man reached the Kaaba, not a tusk grazed its walls. Victory came without human effort. Protection came without walls or swords. This is the power of Allah. He does not need armies to protect his chosen. He does not fight physically. He commands the unseen. Human arrogance, no matter how strong, crumbles before divine will. Scholars note, the event of the elephant was a warning and a lesson for generations long before Islam began. It was a message for Arabs: faith, not force, preserves the sacred. Abraha witnesses the impossible. Elephants collapsing, soldiers fleeing, birds striking again and again. He falls from power. His army is annihilated. His pride shattered. All his plans, strategies, and arrogance are destroyed by stones no one could resist. This was history rewritten, without human intervention. The stones of baked clay scattered across the desert. Silence returns. Silence returns. The sky clears. No army can touch what Allah chooses to protect. This is the miracle remembered in Quran, a small passage, 5 verses, yet a timeless lesson for all believers. Abdul-Muṭṭalib watches from a distance. He did nothing but trust. He did not fight. He did not intervene. He did not intervene. He simply relied on Allah. And Allah acted on his trust. The Quran teaches, the one who relies upon Allah, He is sufficient for him. Faith had been tested. Faith had been rewarded. 1. Faith is stronger than armies. 2. Divine protection surpasses human calculation. 3. Arrogance leads to ruin. 4. Submission to Allah precedes all safety. 5. The unseen is always working, even before we act. Even before we act, soldiers fallen, soldiers fleeing, birds return to the skies. Makkah stands. The Kaʿbah stands. Human eyes see nothing protecting it, yet it was protected. This is the divine message of Surah Al-Fīl. Have you not seen how your Lord dealt with the companions of the elephant? The world will always witness the aftermath of faith, not the mechanics of the unseen. The dust settled. The elephants lay defeated. Abraha's army scattered. And Makkah, the Kaaba, remained untouched. No sword had touched it. No arrow had been fired. No wall had been breached. Yet the world had witnessed a victory greater than any empire could imagine. A victory not earned by human strength, but by faith, trust, and divine decree. Abdul-Muṭṭalib had done nothing. He had not gathered armies. He had not built fortifications. He had only trusted in Allah. This was tawakkul, reliance upon Allah, when human effort seems powerless. The Quran honors this. Have you not seen how your Lord dealt with the companions of the elephant? 25:1. Faith was the shield. Obedience to Allah was the protection. No human weapon was needed. Birds in flocks carrying stones of baked clay destroyed a mighty army. From a human perspective, this seems impossible. From a divine perspective, this was natural. The strongest elephants fell. Soldiers scattered. Pride was humbled. The Quran teaches that divine intervention can come in ways no one anticipates. Even the most meticulous plans fail before Allah's will. Abraha represents a timeless truth. Our arrogance leads to miscalculation. Power alone cannot defeat destiny. Pride blinds even the greatest of generals. Ibn Kathir writes, this story is a lesson for all nations. The house of Allah cannot be touched by pride or force, but only by the will of Allah. History, geography, or military might cannot challenge divine protection. Modern humans face armies of a different kind: corporate power, political domination, social pressure, moral decay. The lesson of Surah Al-Fīl is timeless. 1. Do not fear what men fear. 2. Do not rely on human strength alone. 3. Trust Allah to protect what is sacred. 4. Arrogance is always destroyed. Humility endures. Even when threats seem unstoppable, divine protection is active. The Kaaba was the focus of this miracle. Yet it symbolizes more than a building. Faith preserved, sanctity untouched, spiritual power above human ambition. Muslims today are reminded Muslims' hearts and communities are protected when we place faith above fear. What is truly sacred cannot be destroyed by human hands. The power of God exceeds every plan of man. True reliance on Allah is never in vain. Pure arrogance is punished even before Islam formally arrives. Pure faith, patience, and trust endure across generations. The story of Surah Al-Fīl is not ancient history. It is a living lesson for every age, every challenge, every believer. Even when no help seems visible, new when armies loom, new when threats feel overwhelming, knew when human effort fails. Remember, the one who relies upon Allah, He is sufficient for him. Surah al-Fīl closes with a reminder: divine protection comes unseen at the perfect time. And every believer who trusts Allah can witness this miracle in their own life, in ways both subtle and profound. Kaʿbah in golden dawn, desert calm, flocks of birds in the distance, echo of silence. A city untouched, a faith victorious. The mightiest army fell, the smallest city stood. The lesson lives forever. This is the power of Allah. This is the meaning of Surah al-Fīl. If this story added meaning to your heart, let it reach another. Subscribe for more history, more truth, more understanding.